to the course again. Hope all of you are doing well. In this particular lesson, we'll be talking about 5 forces of framework. This is going to be an interesting one because I have tried to put down some real-time examples from the market, which would help the learners understand the topic. Now, this is something similar to pestle analysis we did. So this is 5 forces of framework. So this basically helps the strategy developers, the ones who are developing the strategies. Let me write it down. The strategy developers generally use this tool. So this is the tool, as you can see. The 5 forces, which is substitutes, buyers, new entrants, suppliers, and the competitive rivalry. This tool is used by strategy developers to understand what's the current standing of the company, the business, how the future looks like, and accordingly the strategy can be designed. So 5 forces of framework. The first force here is threat of substitute for your products or services. This basically talks about how easily is your product can be substituted by some other product into the market, or some other substitute has already made your standing in threat. For example, like we have Netflix coming in recently into the market, and this Netflix has actually brought down the traditional cables revenue at a lower level, and other loose market television shares also coming down. So streaming services like Netflix, Hotstar, Hulu have come as substitutes for the traditional cables, and their sales have been coming down. Similarly, we have electric cars coming in into the market, which has brought other categories, other fuel categories like gasoline, petrol, diesel under threat. The sales for those have been coming down. So this is the first force of the framework, how easily your product can be substituted by some other product. So a company should always target to make their product in such a way that it's not very easy to substitute his or the company's product with some other category of the product. This was the first one. Let me take you to the second force of the framework, which is bargaining power of the buyers. So as a buyer, so this buyer can be the customer as an end customer, or you are buying your raw material from the supplier. So again, the distributor can be buyer for the manufacturer. A retailer can be buyer for the wholesaler. So this would talk about the power of buying, how much buying power you have. So for example, Walmart's relationship with the supplier. Since Walmart does a massive purchasing volume, gives a strong leverage, and allowed it to demand over lower prices and favorable terms. Since Walmart purchases in massive volume, it gives Walmart an upper hand to demand the price and the negotiate on his terms. Also get favorable terms, maybe the credit terms, the way of placing orders. All those things can be dominated by the buyer, because he has the buyer is in a position to purchase the huge volumes. So your volume is massive volume is giving the purchasing power to the buyer. So in other cases where buyers are limited, again the buyers get a bargaining power. So this is another force deciding the current level of your business, which is how much your buyer has power in terms of purchasing. So this was the second one. Let me talk about the next one, which is threat of new entrant. So threat of new entrant. So here the example is Airbnb in the hospitality industry. With the entry of this into the market posed a significant threat to traditional hostels, traditional hotels by offering alternative lodging options, increasing competition and impacting prices. So here we have, there are other examples also, like traditional taxis were affected by the Uber and the Ola services, the car services. Then so these are some examples which are the new entrants into the market which have come and can affect the current business. Going to the next one, which is bargaining power of supplier. So like we have bargaining powers of buyers, the same way how much bargaining power your supplier have over you. Like for example, if in case you have Intel as your supplier, Intel and AMD as your supplier, these companies hold strong position as suppliers of computer processors, giving them power over pricing and supply. As you might be knowing, the semiconductor industry, you have very limited options. The stock is very low. The stock is generally stocked out. Semiconductors, you have limited stock available into the market. So these semiconductor suppliers generally has an upper hand. So they generally have high pricing according to them, and they have an upper hand. So if your supplier is an Intel, then obviously Intel is going to have an upper hand over you. Another example is luxury fashion brands and leather suppliers. So since leather is a limited product, a premium product, there is a scarcity, and compared to the demand is very high. So in such case, again, the supplier has the power or dominance over us. So here is an example of Wolverine in the leather jacket. Last category in 5 forces of framework is industry rivalry. So this basically it talks about the rivalry that you share with other competitors, how aggressive it is. Are you the dominant one, or are there multiple dominating rivalries? For example, we have Coca-Cola and Pepsi. So Coca-Cola and Pepsi have been sharing rivalry since long time. You see, their rivalry has been they have been giving aggressive and tough competition, consistently tough competition, consistently innovating and giving tough competition to each other. So it's a very aggressive market. So a market where already two aggressive players are already there, it's difficult for some other one to enter into it. Another example is Apple and Samsung. So a Samsung phone and Apple phone, their competition has led a rapid innovation. Both of them has been innovating rapidly, product differentiation and heavy advertising. So this is how it works when you have an aggressive competitor into the market against you. So these are the 5 forces of framework which we discussed just now. So quickly giving a summary, we discussed about threats, how easily your product can be substituted by other services. Then we have bargaining powers, power of buyer, how much power your buyer has over you. So here we saw an example of Walmart. Walmart purchasing in high volume has a higher power. Then the threat of new entrants, something like Uber and Ola coming into the market has become threat for the traditional taxis. Then bargaining power of supplier. So like there was bargaining power of buyer, similarly there is bargaining power of supplier. We saw an example of in semiconductor industry, Intel and AMD, how the limited availability of such semiconductor computer processors give them an upper hand to quote higher price. Lastly, we saw industry rivalry. So how different rivals or competitors can affect your strategy. We saw an example of Coca-Cola and Pepsi, also Apple and Samsung. This is it for this video. Thank you and have a great day ahead.